What is up? Welcome to the Smalley Talk podcast. This is your host, Thunder Rod Josh Shrinko. I'm Sans Chris Vaughn tonight. I sent him a couple messages, and dude, he's just busy boy, and he doesn't have time to hop on here. So I searched the Rolodex, and I was like, all right, who can I get to come on that would be interesting, knowledgeable, and just like fun to talk with. And thought, what better person than my good buddy Jeff Little? What's up, Jeff? How's it going, dude?
Hey, Josh. Doing good, man.
Repeat guest. You've been on here several times, so
Yep.
not a new face, but yeah, man, we're you and I talk quite a bit. Jeff's like one of those guys. I probably said this on the podcast, but if Jeff calls, you got to carve out at least 45 minutes to have a conversation with
Do you
him.
know what spurs the call? Is I'll be listening to this podcast and have opinions on things, and it's not live for me. I'm listening while I'm driving somewhere. I'm like, wait, Josh, we need to discuss something. Like,
You just hear me say
assumption
some
you made
dumb
there
shit.
is wrong.
You got to call me out on it and be like, hey, that's wrong. I need you to know that you suck. No, I mean, for real though, it's it's one of those relationships I have where it's like, if I need my fishing fix, I can get Jeff on the phone and we'll basically just chit chat it up, and it's not limited to fishing. I feel like we talk about a lot of different things,
Yep.
life and work and stuff, but obviously fishing is a big part of it. And this time of year it's kind of one of those, it's a time of the year when things are getting gray, that we're kind of past what I would consider fall. I don't know, I would say we're like almost stark in between fall and winter right now. I don't know when the like equinox is, but
Yeah,
or winter solstice starts, but
I don't consider us there yet. They're they're actually I've been on the river a bunch recently, both the Juniata and the Susquehanna, and they're in winter pools, but they're on the perimeter of them. They're shallow and they're near considerable current, but they're like, you know, a very short ride to that deep still water. They're
yeah,
not in it. They're not in
yeah,
it.
it's definitely, I feel like the what people categorize as winter and what fishing in winter is considered are kind of two different things. I mean, Thanksgiving is this weekend or this Thursday. So I don't even know, it's Monday, so 3 days away. So I mean, for most people, that is like kind of the kickoff to Christmas, which, that's like a holiday season. That's winter. That's what we think. In some years, I feel like fall holds on longer. It's kind of just like the fish, for whatever reason, will not quite commit to their winter stuff. And there's an argument there for like photo periods, because I think that has something to do with it. I also think that like at some point you get like a really severe cold snap, and it goes from like, it's 50, 45, 50 during the day till like it's like cold, and I
So
do think that
it
can snap them into place.
we're going to get that at the end of the week, I think, and it there's a difference between getting cold snap and then like early next week it'll get, I don't say warm again, but not cold. And it goes back and forth, and usually I'm going to tell you, you're going to have the potential for warming trends that are significant. 3 day warming trend is usually like, man, if you can get out, towards the end of one of those in winter, it increases your odds significantly. Um, I feel like here in the Mid Atlantic, we always get a really solid one, into like it's usually the week after New Year's. You'll get the last
Mhm.
gasp of the chance of a warming trend. And I don't mean years when it's just warmer up, warmer than average. But yeah, you get past like January 7th, and yeah, it's a different game than it is here the week of Thanksgiving for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll be honest, I feel like I kind of suck at this time of year. Like it can be good. Like I've had good days, but I just am constantly second guessing where the fish are. And I think it probably is like just not fishing as consistently because I do like to fish in the wintertime. So I kind of use this time of year to just like not fish and spend time with my family and stuff, so I'm, like, not burning up that yeah, that time because I just like fishing in the, like, winter. That's, like, my I would say next to pre-spawn, that's my favorite time of year to fish. So
So here's like if you want to winter fish, and I hope you've been out. If you want to winter fish and you want to expand your understanding or just knowledge of like here's a hole, here's a place. All of that happens in November, and that window is closing to a certain extent where you can throw a jerk bait in particular, suspending jerk bait. Like early in November, you can do spinner bait and other moving baits, but like now, the suspending jerk bait helps you find new places. And I'm always trying to expand my knowledge. So I'm not doing what I see, at least on our fisheries. It seems like 90% of the guys that winter fish do. They go to one of the three super well known winter holes and they just pound it. And that to me gets boring. I don't want to see the same, 17 jet boats every time I go out there. I don't enjoy that. And what I do enjoy is is kind of what I did earlier. Well, it was the end of last week. There's a hole on the Juniata that where so I did my classes, my kayak fishing classes all fall, and took people out one on one, taught them the paddling skills, taught them a lot of different presentation specifics, and really did one on one coaching, kayak fishing, but also river smallmouth fishing. And there was an area that I had a student get a pair of 19 plus, and I caught one that was 18 and three quarters, and then I kind of backed off and just let him, just kind of coached him through it. But I said, there's a lot of fish here the end of October. Do they stay here? I want to know, is this a winter hole? And it had some of the characteristics that I would think that it should. But Friday I went with my buddy Kurt, who's it, he's a decent stick becoming a better stick, and he and I picked it apart, and really, I think I got like a 15 and a half and like I don't know, maybe a 12, and it's like wow, all right,
it's
pull
not
back
there.
out of there.
Yeah.
They pulled out of there. But now's the time to figure that out. Like when you
Yeah.
pick it apart and you're like, they should be here and here and here, and you only get two, um, it's like, yeah, this isn't it. And I know where they pulled back to. I mean, there is a known huge pool that it's like, yeah, there's somewhere in here, and it takes some work because it's so vast. And I think it's all connected water, and you can you know there are certain hot spots that everyone knows, and I think it's really fun finding within that pool the spots that are maybe lesser known, that like a lot of the bigger solo fish just kind of like that's their area. So
Well, let's let's do a little bit of like let's pull back a little bit and so we're obviously talking kind of off the cuff about what's going on right now, but I want to pull back and sort of think about guys that want to get into winter fishing and they are like just starting from scratch. And let's just say it's a river that they fish, you know, on a regular basis, but just not in the wintertime. So you're looking at like, a river system free flowing, and we're not talking about ones that have reservoirs connected to them because that can present a whole other like challenge. So we're
Yeah.
talking about a free flowing river similar to like the Susquehanna, the rivers that I fish around here in the Tippy. And, I think winter fishing can be super, super rewarding, but it can also be like you can go out if you don't know where to fish, you could go out a dozen times and not get a single bite. That's just like
Yeah.
how it goes. So, but once you do get a bite, then you usually get a lot of bites. So that's kind of, it can be frustrating and there's a learning curve. But just as you were saying, if you are going to identify those winter spots, right now is when you will be able to identify them at a much faster rate because you're targeting fish that are close to their winter areas, but they're still active enough to where they're gonna actually run something down like a jerk bait that's not necessarily moving really fast, but like it's not sitting on the bottom moving like crawling, as slow as you could possibly crawl it.
Yeah.
So
So last week I got I got 2 19.5-inch fish. One was, I think, 4.9, and the other one wasn't even 4. And each of them hit a jerk bait that had been suspending in the same, position, totally motionless for longer than 30 seconds. And people think that's what you do once it's really cold, but those bigger fish, especially ones that get poked all the time on the Susquehanna and Juniata, like, uh, to call it a jerk bait is a misnomer. It should be the pause bait, right? You just
yeah. I mean, even in
pause,
spring, that's kinda
pause.
how you should fish it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a suspending bait for a reason. It's not a suspending bait so it can keep moving. It's a suspending bait so it can sit. That's
So
that's
if
that's
you're
designed to
thinking
do.
of getting into it and you're like, well, I want to fish further into the winter. First off, get a dry suit. Just get a dry suit. We lose people. We've lost two of them in the last like couple weeks.
Mhm.
And like if you submerge and all of that cold water hits your skin, you have what's called the involuntary gasp. You go, and your body does that whether your lips are above or below the surface of the water. And this is what happened to a friend of mine back in 2001. I lost a friend on the Susquehanna River, and he was wearing kind of what you'd be wearing up in the deer stand instead of like, and he was a jet boater. Like he worked on his he they found the jet boat anchored out in the middle with the engine pulled off and like tools out, and he was gone. Um, but you have to prepare for submersion. And I was actually, the end of last week, I was out doing videos related to that. The safety thing aside, and,
It's
and I got a
important
lot
to talk
of
about.
safety videos that are on the YouTube channel that talk about hypothermia prevention and mediation. Um, that aside, if you have a section of river that or a river that you fish in the other seasons, we just said, yeah, fish where you've been catching them in November or even I'll say the end of October. It depends. But
Well, what do
then,
you think,
what
Jeff?
about the
Like,
ones the pools that you catch fish in like if you go out as early as mid March, that could be a winter hole. So
what do you think? Like, even pulling it back, like just like trying to figure out what makes a winter hole. Like, I think some people like they look at they're like, "Ooh, let's find the deep pools." Like, that's, like, where you want deep pools, and I to some extent, that's true. I think a lot of
It
characteristics of a winter hole,
it's
it
it's it's a larger percentage of, winter pools are deep, but
yeah.
there for sure are exceptions to it,
Yeah.
and I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
talk generally about a really good one on the Susquehanna that the only way I found it is just wandering around there in, like, end of January in exploring, hitting it cold, so to speak. I hadn't caught these fish there in November. I didn't know. I just went out, which is like such a low percentage thing to do. But it worked. Like I had, a big fish, hit a jerk bait that was just hanging out there. And like I go back and I look at it's that side of that island, right? And I've looked at it in Google Maps and it's shallow. And I look at where I caught the fish. I'm like, yeah, that is the deepest area of that whole section. But like, I went back to it and just really learned it and picked it apart with jerk baits and hair jigs and small tubes and just learned it. And when you learn a winter pool, you learn the active eat spots. So the fish will be um I feel like, and I've seen it in this pool in particular, where they're shut down. Like I've drifted over them and like put my paddle like right next to their head and pulled it away, and they don't flinch. They do
Yeah.
not flinch. Um, and then there are times where they wake up and they're like, okay, here's the next 45 minutes of the day in which it got warm enough. I'm going to go over here to the shallow point and look for something to eat. When you can learn those eat spots, um, you're going to increase your success, right? But it takes time to figure those out. It takes picking it apart. And this particular winter hole, um, I've picked it apart over the years, and I actually haven't been on it in 4 years, because I just like to rotate through different ones. But like, it's shallow. Like the majority of the places I catch this fish, and they will spread out, especially during a warming trend, to like you catch a lot of them in less than 3 feet of water. So what is that place that isn't that side of that island that isn't deep? What does it have to offer? What it has to offer
You want me to
is
try to can I take a
go ahead,
stab
go ahead,
answering this?
go do it.
I would say that it has to offer in super high water situations, there's a refuge. That's
Yes,
what I
that's part of it. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But yes, that is, you have to imagine the river at flood stage, and where can they jump up out of their way, right? And I've been out on the Susquehanna on a buddy's jet boat when it was at flood stage, and like, man, if you find them, you've just found all of them.
that's the
But
best time to fish in the wintertime.
dude, high water,
I
like if you're
like
if you're winter hole and it's high water, and you're like, yep, that's steep bank. Steep banks is another thing. Um, yeah, you can put a finesse jig down in there, and it's gonna get jammed.
yeah.
What I was gonna say, and I'm agreeing with you, Josh, on that. But this particular place, the way that the river is laid out, most of the current goes to the other side of that island. And when it splits to this winter hole side of it, even in summer, like it just trickles. It barely trickles through there. And it basically amounts to a current block, like less current overall, right?
Mhm.
And the way that you really assess that is you need to be stopped in a boat. And I do a lot of anchoring I also do a lot of getting out of the kayak and standing on the bank and watching foam bubbles. Most of what I do in in winter that identifies successfully identifies where fish are amounts to um, me putting a bait out there and really not paying attention to it, other than that my line is taut, and if it goes bump, I yank on it, um, which is a gross oversimplification of winter fishing, but it works for this case. I'm out there looking and studying the foam bubbles as they move. Are they moving down? Are they swirling, or over to another part? Do they swirl down into a spot and then just stay there with other foam bubbles? When that happens, that's good. So that means there's a lack of current there. So that's the first kind of prerequisite for, hey, is that a place that I should cast? Now, within, I want to say an eddy, but like an area where the foam has gathered, right? Um, you'll have the center of that thing. I call it the leaf litter zone. So when leaves and muck and other things in higher water collect there, um,
Pollen.
yeah. Well, I
Well, not
mean,
this
just
time of year, but
this
in
time
other
of
times.
year, it's after fall and there's leaves, right?
Yeah.
That's not where you want to put your jig. But somewhere on the perimeter of that, somewhere where it transition, where it gets close to, there is current, 10 feet away or 5 feet away, that it is a hard bottom. And that's such a critical concept that I think these fish, and I'm not talking about sand, they actually like laying on sand.
Yeah.
Um,
Retains
but,
heat.
but, you know, still foam overhead and a hard bottom underneath them. And I throw the jig and just pull on a little bit and scratch bottom and say, is that hard? Cool. All right. Then it is setting the trap, like just waiting, just hoping they move through and see the little subtle movement of, and for me, I tie a lot of my own jigs, and I'm gonna pull some out here in a little bit. I always tie with round rubber because it's always moving. Good luck keeping round rubber from moving. But also soft plastics that have a smaller, thin appendage. Like tubes are great at it. I don't like tubes as much in winter because you don't get that hard connection of a bare lead head on rock. But I will throw a small tube when they're just messing with a larger jig. So
Yeah. That's all like pretty high level stuff. I feel like it's hard when you go out, like it's hard to like apply some of the things that other people have found on their river to your river, because you just get like you're just like looking out at this like 10-mile stretch, and you're like, where do I go? I will say something that I've learned over the past few years of doing it that's helped me is that, one, these fish don't move very far. Like in general, I now again, we're not talking about a reservoir connected river because those fish do travel long distances. I tend to find that these fish, like where they live in the summertime and the springtime where they spawn, it's a pretty condensed area. So like while fish do get really condensed in the wintertime, they're in a lot there you can overlook like winter spots. I think a lot of people think of a winter spot as this like massive pool, and it can be, but I also break winter spots down into like big winter spots and micro winter spots, because you'll have like the big ones that that's usually the ones everybody knows about, like the big pools and you tend to find a little bit bigger fish in those, I think, at least from my experience. But like the smaller micro winter spots, you can kind of go past them. Sometimes I found fish in the wintertime. I'm like, I cannot believe that there are fish in this thing. And it's like it's like as big as like a school bus. It's like it's
Right.
just not very big, but it has all the properties that you need. And I know that there's a lot that goes into it, so I'm not like downplaying anything that you just said. But I think to simplify it, if you do go out when it's like the flow is hammering, and I'm not, it can be unsafe at times. So the level at which you choose to actually go out, it's a little disclaimer here. I'm not telling you to go out when it's like you got trees floating down the river, but when it's as high as like you can get it and comfortably feel like you can go out safely, those spots are like glowing red
Yep.
because
They present
when it,
themselves to you.
yeah, when it's low, you can look across and you're like, yeah, I think that's like you said, you can see some observations of like some foam or some leaves. When it's high, it's like, oh yeah, this is protected, and
So
these fish
when
are,
that
are going to be here.
when that happens more often than not, when you see that, like, hey, let's do, because the and I'm going to think of a smaller river and take Susquehanna out of my brain for a minute. And I'm not going to name it, but like, I've done these floats where
Name
I'm
it.
like,
Just
I
name it.
know, I know it's somewhere in the Shenandoah Valley, but that's a huge, there's I narrowed it down, like, not at all. I've done 14-mile float trips in winter where I'm just like hammering until I get to a pool. I'm like, okay, things are slowing down here, and I'll turn the motor around and face upstream and just kind of tread water and look. I won't pick up a rod. I just look, and if I know that I've just gone through 3 miles where I don't see anything, to use your descriptor, the size of a school bus where that foam is just sitting still, you just keep moving. But then you get to that one spot and you're like, yeah, this is worth poking around. And honestly, you could fish that bank where it's just like there's a point that comes out and you have that beautiful steep bank that is, comes down to the water. And you know that if it's a steep bank, it's going to keep going deep right there in front of it. And the point up at the top of the pool diverts all the current to the opposite shore. And it's not that much current, anyways, because the overall volume of water in that pool, if you were to take a cross section, it'd be a lot of water. So none of it's moving very fast. Checks all the boxes. And if you go there through there and you invest the time and you pick it apart and you throw this tiny little tube, this little llama tube, and I made them in the past, the confidence baits, the little tube. You're hoping that this thing gets seen, right? And you've put it in that spot where the foam is sitting still, and you scratch bottom. uh, I'm actually happier doing it with,
Does that
like,
does that tube have a little dick hanging out of it?
it
Is
does,
that what it
it
is?
does. This is
They're
this
called the
is
pecker tube, dude.
it does. It gives it a little extra lift. So I'll put that little
That looks
bing,
really
bing.
familiar, dude.
Yeah. Well, mine
Oh,
isn't
that's fine.
green. This one's green. Anyways, at least I hope it's not green.
That's the bad news if
If
it
it's green,
is.
there's problems. So I just give put that on there. It's a Aztec. It gives it a little bit more lift. Anyhow, still foam, hard bottom, and you can pick it apart and, like, not get bit. And that doesn't mean that there weren't any fish there. And that's where we go back to, like, if I fished that same pool and there really were fish and I just hit it on an off day, it's about how much time do you invest in a spot. And that's the sort of struggle that we have as winter anglers. Like, if we know it's a spot, cool, we can be patient with it. We have faith in that spot. We're like, yes, I've caught them here before, I'm gonna catch them this time, right? And I'll tell you, Josh, I haven't put this out there yet, but I am offering one-on-one winter fishing classes this winter. And the prerequisite is you're not taking my class unless you have a dry suit. But a lot of what I'm going to be teaching, sure, I'm going to teach the mechanics of maintaining a taut line and using fine wire hooks so that you catch fish that like sometimes you don't deserve to catch that hook themselves. Eh, like I'm going to teach a lot of those fishing things, but the biggest thing that I'm going to help people with one-on-one um, is positive mental attitude and visualization. So it's really hard to focus on on a presentation when you're cold, you're uncomfortable, and nothing's happened for 5 hours, and you're like have all this like negative thought in your brain about like what am I doing, this isn't even a good place, and you start saying those negative things like they're not here, they're not going to eat, blah, blah, blah. You know, so much of successful winter fishing is pushing those thoughts out. In one of the best ways that I feel I've done it to bring that level of focus so that when it's been 5 hours and one of them finally goes dunk and you're not like staring off into space and don't even know that it happened. If you're focused, you're gonna set the hook. If you're not focused, you're gonna miss fish. And
or
visualization.
or if the fish just are spitting it out that day and you get one bite and you miss it, it's one of the worst feelings in the world.
It's not
Pretty
good.
terrible.
I would tell you a lot of times people say, "Oh, I missed a hit." No, no, no. Actually, what you felt is that fish had been gumming on
Chomping.
that thing for like 30 seconds and it finally said, "This ain't food." Patoon!
Yeah.
And then you feel that and you said, "Oh, I missed him." Yeah, you missed him 30 seconds ago, bud. Anyhow, visualization, and this is what's so important um, to try to imagine like you've cast over there and you see the steep bank. You're like, there's a laydown here. I'm imagining what the rest of that laydown looks like as it bisects this big eddy. And you put the jig in there and you drag the bottom, and you're like, it's leaf matter. We'll just keep moving. And then it starts going crunch, crunch, crunch. What do you visualize? You visualize there's gravel. Okay, cool. What does the bait look like sitting on the bottom, right? Here's a little finesse jig I made with the TRD claws. I'm visualizing these claws kind of wavering up, right? What does it look like on bottom? What is your and you can help the visualization by playing around with it in the shallow water. That will help you. Just imagine it sitting on the gravel, right? Then you imagine a fish kind of cruising overhead and just passing it and being like, huh, that wasn't there when I came through at like, 6:30 this morning. That's something new. And then they cruise on past and you're like, okay, you're gonna come back. And the round rubber lifts up and just kind of wavers there. It's visualization of saying, all right, that fish is gonna need probably another 2 minutes to come back, and then look at it, sniff it, smell the smelly jelly or whatever scent I put on there, and he's gonna come up to it. He's gonna turn his nose up there. And what does it look like when they eat? They open their mouth, they suction it in, and
That's
that's
what
what
you
we're
feel.
looking for. And you visualize what it's going to do to your line as it hops, and you feel that vibration travel up to your rod, and you can feel it. You reel down and bury that hook. So having that level of focus is what's going to make you a better winter river smallmouth angler. But the people I've coached, and I've done this before, I've taken people under my wing, and somebody did it for me a long time ago. 2001 in particular was my first really good winter. And Brian Woodchuck took me out on the Shenandoah main stem in West Virginia and really like gave me that little, hey, fish between this ledge rock and these three sycamore tree root balls until you catch a fish. And I did. But it took like 3 hours. He's like, don't leave here until you have a fish. It gets you over the hump where you believe in it and you develop this positive mental attitude, like, yeah, this can be done. I can do this. There are fish here. And that pays dividends the other 3 months. It totally does. It makes us mentally tougher as anglers, right? It makes us, it's like weightlifting where you lift heavy weights to like get bigger muscle. You're getting a better, tougher angler brain by fishing when it's hard to catch fish, right? It's hard to maintain positive mental attitude. It's hard to maintain focus when success is not coming readily. And
Mhm.
that mental toughness, that getting better in the space between your ears as an angler is is incredibly profound. And when I've taken people under my wing before, um, I've watched them have like an amazing banner year of catching big smallmouth the next spring, summer, and fall. And it's because they're developing mental toughness, visualizations, positive mental attitude, all of those things. Yes, we can talk about the mechanics of, a fine wire hook, and we can talk about the mechanics of, braid to fluorocarbon leader and it doesn't stretch. And we can talk about the mechanics of like, hey, the wind's blowing this way, so I'm going to use a heavier jig and make a shorter cast, or hey, it's pushing my boat around and the boat's wiggling back and forth. Let me put 2 anchors down to stop, or even jump up on the bank so that my feet are on terra firma and I don't have that constantly moving back and forth in current in the slack. I mean, all of these are mechanical things that I can help somebody get better at. But the bigger thing is, hey, let's visualize. Let's let's believe that there are fish there. And it's hard. It's hard. It's hard because we want results. We're impatient, and when results don't come quick, we naturally become negative and make excuses and start, you
This is
know.
I wish Chris was on here right now because he is Mr. like roller coaster of emotion when we're fishing. If we're like having a bad day or something's going on, I'm always like pep talking him the whole time. I'm like, hey dude, it's just let's move spots. Let's change up our presentations, do something a little bit different instead of, oh, they're just because like it or not, if you fish long enough, we can sit here and talk all we want about like the right things you're supposed to do, but sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes you just go out like kind of like you were saying, like, oh yeah, I put my paddle in front of their face and they didn't move for whatever reason, external factors where these fish just are in a negative mood. And I've literally drug a I remember it, this is like one of the early times I was winter fishing, and it was super clear, and I was in a kayak, and I had myself pinned against the bank, and I was looking out over this it's a winter pool, but it like has a flat on the side of it, and it was sunny that day, and I saw this like pod of like, I don't know, 5 or 6 fish that were all over 18 inches, and I was like, holy shit. And they were facing away from me. Had no idea I was there. Had a dead to rights. And I used to fish with those hogsies a lot in the wintertime.
Mhm.
And I threw like
Good
out
bait.
in front of them, and I drug it right in front of their face, and I mean, I could see my bait, I could see the fish, and I got the biggest one I drew it right in front of his face, and I literally was, like, hitting it in the face with this lure, like, it was just sitting, it wasn't moving, and they weren't even, like, moving their body, it was just and I drug it up in front of its face to where it's like it I mean, it obviously can feel it or whatever, and I remember I watched its mouth open, and it opened like the slowest I've ever
Yep.
seen a fish open its mouth. It opened its mouth, and it grabbed those hogsies have those
The
little 2
tips.
little legs? It
Yep.
just grabbed the 2 little legs,
Yep.
and then it just held it in its mouth, and I was sitting there, and I'm like, "Alright,
The hook's not in
son."
them.
I was like, "Just keep just"
Finish.
yeah, and and it was about that time a cloud came over and I just like completely lost like sight. I couldn't see the fish anymore. And so I was like kind of feeling and I waited maybe like 5 or 6 seconds and I just set the hook because I was like, I feel like it should be and it just popped right out. And I'm like,
Oh,
and I just remember thinking that day, I was like, dude, I left. I just turned around, I went back home and I was like, there's just they're just not in the mood today. Now, I will say in the wintertime, you have feeding windows where there'll be like an hour or two during the day when they'll feed
but
and then they
you
just
you
shut
don't know
down.
when that is.
No, and sometimes it's gonna be
I
early
will
in the
tell you that
morning, sometimes it's gonna
dusk
be in the afternoon, just depends.
from when the sun goes down to it's totally dark is is the most like if you're in a winter hole and you have that shallow area right next to the deep that is the it's the kitchen table, man. They pull up there and they're like, if I'm gonna
Mhm.
eat, this is where I eat. Um yeah, from the sun is down to like, hey, it's totally dark and it's cold and I need to go home. That period of time has been very good to me in the past. But what I just said there is kind of critical. Like I'm surprised that you said that you saw that many, and they it sounded like they pulled up shallow and were not responsive.
Yeah, exactly. They weren't I don't know. I mean, I see fish do some weird stuff in the wintertime. Like I don't know. I mean, fish act differently, obviously, at different times. I'll see them like in that spot. That's it's a smaller river. That spot, I see the packs of them. They just like slowly swim around the pool and just kind of like work their way around the
They
pool.
run laps.
Yeah,
They run
and
laps.
then and you'll lose sight of them, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you'll see them kind of come around again. And sometimes it's hard. I mean, honestly, like sight fishing in the wintertime is not exactly, a dependable technique. But in certain situations, you can kind of see them if it's clear enough. Um, but yeah, that was like towards the end of the day. I'd been fishing all day. I hadn't had a single bite, and I'd been out there for like 6 hours, and I was just like, I was just done with it. But I mean, you'll go around other times. That's kind of when you talk about positive mental attitude, like the way I really think like one that positive the PMA thing applies to any part of the year, really.
It
Like
does, but you get really good at it if you winter
y-
fish.
yeah, 100%.
Like the
It's
rest
just
of the year, the heavy lifting is you're picking up a 20-pound dumbbell, but if you do it in winter, you're picking up like the 75-pound dumbbell and your muscles get bigger.
yeah, and I exactly, but I think though even like any dummy can go out there and throw a chatterbait when it's the fish are just chomping and they just get hammered and you're just like fish after fish after fish. But like that's a pretty small time of the year, even on the Susquehanna. I mean, in the summertime, you go out there, you'll have like 2 3 hours. You won't get bit. The fish shut down, and that fortitude mentally to kind of keep fishing. And I mean, I don't want to apply this to tournaments totally because tournaments are you know it kind of exacerbates that. But I do think that in a tournament you do have to keep that's what winners do. They just kind of keep grinding it out. They keep fishing the entire time instead of like almost like just mentally, like even if you're still fishing, you just kind of let off the gas. And
Yeah.
I think that is what a lot of people they mentally they're just like they're done. And yeah, in the wintertime, you don't
So endurance, it's endurance of focus
yeah,
is that you develop.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You have to have it. I mean, and yeah, like I said, there's certain days when it's like, I didn't really need endurance of focus, but
So you need more endurance of focus for the bait that you throw it out there and you let it sit at the bottom, which is most of my winter fishing. However, I've just pulled this up. I got the big blade chatterbait here that
uh
I tied the hair on, the bucktail. And then I got this. whatever soft plastic trailer on there. This is my newer version of what I used to do with a spinnerbait, a big Colorado
Slow roll
blade
it.
spinnerbait that just you slow roll and it just doom, 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 doom. There are days that you can throw moving baits and it short circuits their whatever their slow metabolism, don't want to chase it. Sometimes with and it's the same thing in reservoir fishing when you throw a silver buddy or a blade,
Yeah,
blade bait.
blade bait. Yeah.
Yeah, it's moving fast and it's this and it jumps up in front of them and flashes and they snap at it, right? Um, that's not congruent at all with taking this little finesse jig and just letting it sit for like 10 minutes at a time, right? Those two don't match up. In one case with the finesse jig, they have to come across it and look at it and sniff at it and wander away and then come back 5 minutes later and decide to eat it. With something that's moving, like this chatterbait here with a huge blade, it's a 3/4 ounce head, and I've just tied bucktail to it. It's flashy and noisy, and it's going to be gone soon. So it's a limited opportunity. They have to jump on it or not, right? And there are days when you can get them to eat that. Usually, you're moving it slower. Like you're having a lot of bottom contact. It's and you can even pause it on the bottom, let it sit there for like a minute, and then when you restart it, well, they saw it come over there, and they're not far from it. If they're awake and they're curious, maybe they pick it up off the bottom, but more often than not, they're like a foot away from it, and then it starts again, and then wham, they hit it. So you don't want to totally abandon moving baits. I know a lot of guys and I'm not one of them. I can catch them in winter on a crankbait, but man, I feel like I invest so much time trying to make that work. There are days that I've had like 3 good days with crankbaits on, well, 2 on the Susquehanna and 1 on the Rappahannock in winter, where it's just like it started working in the morning and I just never put it down, right? And you catch bigs. So it can happen. What I'm going to tell you is that you gotta bring that rod that throws the crankbait, that rod that throws the big bladed, Colorado, single Colorado, or in my case, this very large bladed, the big blade chatterbait, and try it. Just try it every once in a while. Like if you give it 20 minutes in an area where you're like, I think there's fish here, I know there's fish here, just check to see, hey, are you gonna, you guys up for a chase today? If you are, awesome. That can be fun because then you're investing less time per spot and you're able to engage with more fish over the course of a day.
Do you
But
do
if it
you
didn't
feel
work,
like
go back to the bottom bouncer.
do you feel like that's more likely to be
At the end of a 3-day warming trend.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, just like with the chain, and it doesn't. I don't think it has. I think people hear warming trend and like the water's not gonna warm up that much. Like it doesn't take a lot. It just takes enough to be like, oh, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the like super odd global warming, like we're at 60 degrees in January for 2 days. That doesn't necessarily like tickle my fancy as much as just like a slight like 3 day like, oh, it's like instead of being
A lot of that
26
comes
degrees,
down
it's like
to
42 degrees.
how cold did it get at night the last 3 nights.
Yeah,
Like, if there's cloud cover at night, it doesn't get as cold. So, here's another moving bait that I have had success in the winter, in February in particular.
underspin.
It's the underspin, right? It's a very light wire hook. I pour these myself with an owner 5318 super, super sticky. And they grab this thing, they get it in their mouth, and it's on them, right? But yeah, underspins. I'll pick up the underspin if like in sometimes you'll like I'll throw the 4-inch scented jerk shad, and if I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna recast, and I'm reeling in, and one follows it, and I'm like, oh, you gonna chase? All right, I'll give you the underspin. Again, if they're gonna chase, give them, give them something to chase, right? It's going to allow you to cover more water. It's going to allow you to interact with more fish over the course of a day. So,
Yeah, I was trying to think. I think we talked about it. I have a new technique that I'm trying out this winter. I spent like $100 at Tackle Warehouse on getting all the stuff to do it.
just
Did
100?
I? Yeah. Did I? Yeah, I
Yeah, that's
know it
easy.
didn't get me much. Um, but I don't want to give it away because I try to stay at one step ahead in Indiana on that stuff because as soon as I say like what we're doing, inevitably other people do it. So, um, yeah, little finesse jig.
Yeah. So this is a finesse jig I made. You can see the round rubber. It's got a little bit of bucktail and a little bit of silicone. And this is like not even the full length
Half
of
of the TRD Pro. Yeah.
yeah, the TRD craw. I cut like half the body off, and it exactly what you described, where the fish are like, "Yep, I'm just gonna grab the claws." Well, if you've downsized,
Yeah, they don't have any. If they grab it, they're
if
getting
they're gonna
hooked.
interact with it at all, they gotta take the whole thing in their mouth. So just rigging that on there.
Yeah. Um, have you ever done float and fly in the wintertime?
Yes. I think I think I've had some success with it, but I think it's more of a Dale Hollow thing than anything.
Dude,
Because
I
of
feel
the shad. You do well with it. I've heard other guys, Indiana
I
guys, say they do well with it.
honestly, it was like one of those things that's like one of the first things that I tried winter fishing with, and it was yeah, it's a good looking jig. You always have good looking jigs, Jeff.
Thanks.
Uh, but like the float and fly thing's interesting. I actually ended up getting a rod specific for it because you do need a really long rod because you have such a long
Like
leader
a
on it.
7.6,
Um,
7.9.
yeah, I think the one I got's like an 8. It's like 8 foot. But
That's a lot.
so I know. Well, here's the thing about float and flies. It's actually really fun because you're watching a bobber, and as like gay as that sounds, like it's like a thing like back in the day you watch the bobber go under and you're like, "Oh, that's awesome." And it's actually pretty cool. So, float and fly is the only thing about float and fly that sucks is like determining how long your leader is because
Otherwise, you're snagging on the bottom.
yeah, so you got to like screw with that quite a bit. But
So what are
the
the
good
flies you're using? Are you I
it's
mean,
just like a
it's a 90-degree.
tiny little yeah, 90-degree jig hair jig. I mean, I'm talking like tiny and what's fun about it and with the advantage of it is like there is no bite detection. Like when they hit it, you see the popper go under. You're like, you get the hook set. Whereas like when you're fishing on bottom, there is just some days they just don't hit it very hard, and you feel pressure.
Yeah.
You don't ever
So
feel a hit. So
when I coach people, and I'll put this out there, if anyone wants to get on the water with me this winter and have me coach them, or even if they don't, they're like, yeah, I don't live anywhere near you, Jeff, but I'd still like to know what that's about. I have an outline that has a bunch of video links, and it also has the links to each of my um, playlist for December in January and February. But it goes through a lot of the different things that I teach people one-on-one, but shoot me an email. It's Jeffrey Knowles, Knowles, little at gmail.com. You can put it in the show notes or something, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And just send me an email and say, winter fishing outline, and I'll send you the outline. You can check it out. Um, but you know, there's a lot to it that if you're new to it and you just struggle and you're like, I went out 3 times and got nothing. That
That's
hopefully some
normal.
things in that outline will get you over the hump. So
Yeah, and I think there's if you're gonna increase your chances of having a successful river or a winter trip on the river,
go with someone who already knows how to do it.
yeah, that's the easiest way for sure. Or take Jeff's class. That's I'm sure he's gonna take you to at least a spot. Um, so one, I think the 3-day warming trend we talked about, that'll increase your odds. And I don't think that started yet. And I think it's important to establish like they need to have already kind of moved into their winter pattern because I've mistaken like warming trends in November and like, oh, I should go out. And it honestly kind of like sucks. I kind of like it when it's going the opposite way this time of year. Um, but like, let's just say after Christmas, like that's like to me,
Right.
I like Christmas is kind of like the kickoff for winter to me. So you're maybe mid-December, but like let's just say Christmas, you get a 3-day warming trend, that's a good indicator. You know, with the caveat of safety, high water, I think is the best thing that you can do. Even outside of a warming trend, high water. And obviously there's a threshold there for safety reasons, but I've been in the jet boat. I can go out in pretty high water and not really feel at risk at all. Um, Actually, it's easier in the jet boat in high water if I'm being honest, because there's like nothing to hit because all the
Right.
rock water. But like I went out when it's like did the dams pumping? Like it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. This is just pretty crazy. And then you go out and you're like, oh, yeah, they're like stacked in these spots. So I just think it's harder in lower water. It's
Because they
almost like
spread out, and when
yeah,
the
it's like
river
a
comes up,
summertime thing.
it throws them onto like your, you know, your winter hole or your part of the winter hole that you normally fish that they could be anywhere in which is the size of like the end zone on a football field turns
Yeah.
into what you could park a compact car inside of. And if you can put your jig inside that tiny little footprint and you've condensed all the fish there, yeah, your success rate goes way up because you're very pinpoint, hey, they're here in you're just in front of more fish.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think the winter spots just become bigger, like exponentially bigger when it's low water because they don't have to even be in the winter spot. They can
Right.
they can go way
Yep.
upstream or way downstream, and it's like there's not enough current to kick them back into that really still stuff. So there's like different low when it's low, I think it's like super hard. Once it's normal pool, I think you can do it reasonably, but when it's like high, then it's like, oh, they get shoved into the corner and like I mean, we've had days where you can literally like you're dragging something on bottom and all you feel is like the top of like carp's backs and
Yep.
like, you just like because they're so condensed. So like high water. And then my third thing, I would say if you if you think you're fishing slow, fish slower. Like you need to fish as slow as you can. Like the winter crawl on the bottom is like painful. Like it's like you move it, a
All right.
quarter inch,
So,
half inch, and you just let it
Josh,
sit.
I grew up doing a lot of soaking chicken liver for channel cats on the upper Potomac. So I got used to, the egg sinker sliding up and down the line, chuck it out there and just wait and feel, all right, is one messing with it, Oh, I think he just took it. All right, let's reel down and set the hook. If you think of it in terms of like, I'm soaking bait, I'm setting a trap instead of enticing a bite. That's a better approach than like, you need to slow down. No, you just need to stop.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And I suck at that. I've had to get better at it in wintertime because I just like don't like to fish slow.
So
But
so
like,
many of my students this past fall, and we had it really low and clear. We had to do a lot of that. Um, and they had higher metabolism, right? Like they were flying around if they wanted to be, right? I mean, water temp still, started probably at, 72 degrees, and I think the last class I taught was probably mid 50s. Then it got cold after that, but there's fish you should be able to, hop it and move it around, but like the best bites that we got in that low clear, we're doing the same thing we do in winter, which is to like, set a trap instead of enticing a bite. And it worked in low clear water, because they're incredibly observant of their job is to like notice that tiny little thing that's different, that doesn't look the same as the last time they rolled through, because that's food, right? Like
mm,
the rocks don't move around that much. The grass is pretty much the same as it is, throughout the summer and into the fall, although some of it disappears. From one pass to the next, they're inventorying and looking at it, saying same, 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 same. Oh, that small little thing is different. Let's go over there and check it out. That's their job. That is what they do to survive. They notice the little thing that's different. And, you know, the little thing that's different that's food is trying really hard to not be noticed. It's not hopping around. It's not jumping up
yeah,
and down saying, "Here I am, come eat me." Blah, 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 blah. They don't do that. They don't do that.
yeah.
And when you dead stick a bait, it's very convincing. It's like, what is that? And there's some part of the bait that's always moving that gives it away, you know.
Do you
So my students got really good at it, and I got to watch that aha moment where I would yell at my student. I would say, "Take your left hand off of the reel. Put your left hand on your
do you
left knee
do you
and
talk like that to
stop
your
moving
students,
it."
Jeff?
Huh?
Do you talk like that to your students?
I do. I do. It's funny. They shocked. I like scare them. They're like, "Okay, Jeff's gonna throw rocks at me if I touch that rail handle." You know, but then and then they let it sit for 30 seconds, which they hadn't let it set more than 4 prior to that, thinking they're fishing it slow. And at 31 seconds, one goes pow, and they're like, "Oh, this actually works." And the
Yeah,
light bulb goes off, and all of a sudden they're a little more patient with the dead
yeah. I
stuff.
mean, it goes back to the confidence thing. I think feedback gives you confidence. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like it's hard to have confidence when nothing's happening, but if you if you finally get that hit and then probably get 2. For me, it's like it takes 2. If I get 1 hit, I kind of in my head, I'm like, maybe maybe just like got lucky, caught a roamer, something like that. If I get 2 in a row, I'm like, game on, baby. All right, I'm locked in. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm gonna do it that exact way. Um, but you gotta get to that point first. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes, sometimes it takes 4 hours. It just depends
And
on
again,
what day.
the person that got me to that point, um, took me under his wing, was Brian. He went by Woodchuck. His last name was Weirchuck. He was this
You
was
know that
back.
guy can catch fish. If your nickname's Woodchuck, dude, you're a fish catching son of a
He
bitch.
he took me on the main stem Shenandoah, and he's like, "Listen, I'm gonna go around the bend. I'll be within like shouting distance, but like you're not allowed to leave until you catch a fish between that ledge rock and this sycamore tree root ball. They are here, Jeff. I've just given you all the faith you need. I fish this all the time, and this is primo. And at the time, I was good at fishing a 3¼ inch little Schubert's tube on a 1/4 ounce jig head that you get from with a wire weed guard, single wire weed guard you get out of the at the Walmart. But he said, "This is what you're going to do. You are going to catch a fish. You may not leave here till you catch a fish." And I mean, I don't know how long it took me, but like a 19 1/4, then I caught like 2 others, and like I started hooting and hollering. I can see him paddling, his little perception swifty as fast as he can to come up and take a picture for me. So
Yeah, that's fun, man. It's like I remember the first time it clicked for me. It was a day Chris and I were out, and I caught. It was like really early in the day. I caught like a 19 1/2, and it was a big 19 1/2. Like it was like just shoulders, like full of whatever had been eating.
do you
And I
weigh
was
them?
like, that one, no,
Do you weigh fish?
we didn't have a scale that day. Now I'm gonna explain to you what happened after that. So I'm like pumped. I'm like, dude, it made my day. I didn't even need to catch anymore. I was like, I caught a giant, 19 1/2. Chris, like maybe like 5 minutes later, hooks into, at the time, was the biggest Indiana smallmouth I had ever seen. It was a 21 1/2, but dude, this thing was like, I don't know what they'd been feeding on that year, but I mean, this thing was huge. I still have the picture to this day. It's like the picture does the fish justice. It's like,
Beautiful.
oh yeah, you can see how big this fish is. And I remember that day, I was just like, huh. And it like ever since then, and I think that was there. Both those were on floating flies. It was the first time we had, and we ended up catching a half dozen fish that day, which is pretty indicative. I mean, most days you go out, we talk about all the great days we've had out in the wintertime, and we have had 130 fish days out on the river before. Most of the time, you're like, oh, I caught 12. I had a great day. That's kind of like how it is.
Yeah, that's good.
There are,
Realistic expectation.
yeah, there's exceptions to it, but I remember it was just that one, like, it's like, okay, the light bulb turned on. Now I kind of know I'm gonna go repeat this on a different river, and then on a different river. And I've caught every river that I fish in Indiana at some point. I've caught a fish in the wintertime on, and it's you're able to go out because you can, at some point, you can look at a spot. You may not be 100% sure. You're like, I'm pretty sure there's fish here in the wintertime. Like, it has everything it needs, and like I said, it's way harder to identify those in low water unless you can see fish. And if you can see fish, and I don't even mean smallmouth, if you can just see like carp,
Rough fish.
catfish,
Yep,
there's gonna be smallmouth in
they're
there
in there.
too, because they all live together in the wintertime. Now, you may have a harder time finding out where the smallmouth are depending on the size of the winter pool, because some of these winter pools are actually. I do want to ask you one more thing because we got to go. We're over an hour, but I do want to ask you something. What about winter pools that are humongous, like where you're like, I know they winter here, but this thing, there's like a stretch of like a mile of river, or half mile of river that's just like there's no current. They got to be in here somewhere. How do you breaking that down?
In November with a jerk bait.
Yeah, probably a
I
good point.
mean, it still comes down to you put the time in, and and you try to find the spot within the spot, right? You work everything, and when you find that one creek mouth gravel dump in the middle of that steep bank, and you're like, you drag the jig from like 6 inches of water, and it trickles, it tumbles down like 3 feet, sits there for 2 seconds and gets pow. You're like, oh, I will remember this. That part of the bank. All right, let me look up. Oh, there's an old shack right there, right? And look, someone has brought a swing set down here for their kids to play in summer. You start remembering these details, and you're like, okay, look closer. All right, big sycamore tree root ball here. You go like 10 yards down. There's a little notch. Okay, and there's once you move in after you catch the fish and you look at it, you're like, I understand it now. So you found the spot within the spot. And I do a lot of triangulation, a lot of,
Yeah.
and you can do it with your phone. I mean, this little pocket computer thing here, I use it a ton with Google Maps. I'm gonna flash you some winter holes here. Let me just like
Boom.
show like that's the Susquehanna with like a bunch of different like
People screenshot
plots.
this right now.
There you go. And see, I'm aggravating people by moving it even a little bit. Um,
Yeah, you'd be
but
shocked how many people are
seriously,
gonna actually
like
try to find those spots.
look at that. Ah, what what's going on there?
Looks like a
So
Rockville ledge is what that looks like, but
it's the ledge below there. Now those were warmer weather pin drops, but like when you find it, when you find the spot within the spot, if it's good, you're gonna remember it. You're gonna recognize
it's
the
it's
swing
funny you
set.
say that. There's like one spot that Chris and I you know what's weird? I to this day I still don't know why those fish are there. And they do have mud on their belly, so they sit and now that I think of it, I've never really thought of it this way.
They never sit on leaf matter.
So there is like a turn in the river and it just deposits silt on the inside of the turn.
Silt,
And
if
and
it's
they
if it's clean, sand, silt,
yeah,
yeah,
it must be because this river is like rock everywhere. It almost has no bad substrate. It's like all good substrate. And then in this one particular spot though, there's somebody has put in I don't know why, but they have cinder blocks on the bank. And like I always know if I line my jet boat in like parallel to the cinder blocks and spot lock it, and then I
yeah,
cast out at a 9-degree angle off my boat, I hit that spot. For
yeah.
whatever reason, we
Yep,
hit it
you've
and they
triangulated.
and it's not all the time, but we had 2 days where we had one was like 103.75 best five, and the other day was like 104 and a quarter. And it was they were all right there. They're just in that spot, and you sit there
You found the
all
spot
day.
within the spot, and
Yeah.
and your best chances of doing that are at the end of a 3-day warming trend. But you don't like you don't always get that. And what I'm going to tell you is you should just go, and it will it will give you the mental toughness, the endurance of focus. If you keep doing it, and I would contend that winter fishing for me is my favorite, which sounds like weird and somewhat is the word sadistic. Why would you prefer to go out on a day where like you only get 3 bites, right? Like I tell friends that like don't get it, and they're like, that sounds miserable. You're freezing your ass off. You're not catching that many. Like that sucks. And I think what happens is that like you go 5 hours and you get nothing. And then you get that flurry of like 8 hits and you catch like 6 of them, and like 2 of them are giants. And but that first one, maybe that first one's only like 16. It doesn't matter, man. Like whatever
That's
happens
pretty
in our
cool.
brain when that first hit from that first jig goes bam, and you're like, yes, like that is a higher high than catching catching a
Be careful
21
what you say
incher
here.
on top water in the middle of summer for
I don't
whatever
know
reason
about
for me.
that. I
For
I do
me,
I do think you have a point. The thing I'll tell, like, practically speaking, like, you can just
like if
catch
we're drug addicts, like that's the best heroin.
you can catch 20s any time of the
A
year.
horrible analogy, but I think it
You
works.
can I like heroin, meth, we can just throw any sort of drug analogy here. It you can draw a lot of parallels, let's be honest. But we're both meth heads in fishing for sure.
Yeah, we're fish heads. So, but I would contend if you do a brain scan of a gambling addict and fishing, like someone who does this, like it's the same brain.
It's just
Like
it's
they're just
yeah,
looking for
it's
that next hit.
you're getting a rush. That's
Yeah,
all it's a yeah,
it's the
dopamine.
anticipation of like and maybe optimism you don't deserve. Like I'm gonna win. I'm gonna, it's gonna go my way, right?
Well,
But
yeah, and
then when it goes, just oh,
oh, I know it's called Bass Burgers, but
fast
um
burgers.
um but we practically speaking, I do think, like I said, you can catch 20s any time of the year, sometimes easier than others. But to catch the top end fish in the river, and I mean like the biggest fish in the river, winter is the best time to do that, in my opinion. Like, because those guys, I don't know where they go. I don't know where they go in the spring and summer. Like, they're just hard to find. They're savvy, they're smart. You do run across them sometimes, but like that 22, 23 incher, like I think your best
They're gonna
chance
slip
is,
up more in winter
yeah, for whatever reason. So,
because their brain
but
is cold.
yeah, probably. Have you heard I don't even know where I heard this from. I think it was on like um Instagram video or something, but a guy was talking about the four levels of fishing. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, catch, you know, any fish, many fish, big fish, method fish.
Yeah, so the way I ever explain is like level one is you just like to catch fish. You just go out and you're just content to catch fish. The second level fisherman is you want to go catch a lot of fish. So you're out there just
With your little clicker.
yeah, you're just like, I just want to catch as many fish as I can. Then the level three fish, you're like, I don't really care about catching a lot of fish. I just want to catch the big fish. You're like a trophy hunter. And then the level four guy is he wants to catch the big fish, but he wants to catch them the way he wants to catch them, right?
Yeah.
You're level five fish. You want to go out and torture yourself to get 3 bites in the wintertime. That's level five. That's a level five fisherman right there. I want to freeze my ass off in 20-degree weather and get 3 bites. That's level five, baby. So if you've done that, you've made it to level five for sure. So
It's, I understand the muskie fishermen. I'm not one of them, but it's the
mhm.
same kind of thing, like where you know, the odds are not, are stacked against you, but if you can make it work, it's a huge rush.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I mean, yeah, I think if you should get definitely a winter fishing a try. If you're not a big hunter and you don't go out and have another hobby like that, which I used to hunt a lot, and kind of I'm like, yeah, I like being out here because one, there's just nobody out on the river, which is kind of cool. Like you have it all to yourself for the most part.
Yep.
Yeah, you have a chance. Like my personal best came in February, and it's just kind of like I think it was, yeah, the single best days I've had on the river. You can, like, top 5 fish. If you charted out my entire fishing career, 4 or 5 out of the top 10 were in December through February.
Yep.
So, just it's just facts. That's how it is. Um, but yeah, man, well, I think that's all we have. I will put in the in the show description, I will put your link. But I know you did start doing more of these kayak instruction. They're kayak fishing classes, but they
Yeah,
have
so I'm a level 3 certified river kayak instructor. I got my certification through the American Canoe Association, which for whatever reason I had to do an Eskimo roll to get that level, even though it has no application to kayak fishing. I actually been working with a bunch of people to work with the ACA to develop a kayak fishing curriculum, or specific to, well, it's gonna, we're hoping it's gonna get its own discipline, just like whitewater kayak has its own discipline, stand-up paddleboard has its own discipline, coastal kayak has its own discipline. And if you're interested in that information, I have an outline for that as well. I don't know if I'm going to be teaching these again in the spring. Everyone wants to know, but like, I put my shingle out to do these in like September, and like I loaded up on classes and taught on the Juniata and Susquehanna. And I had a number of students, two students in particular, saying, "Hey, I want to do the winter fishing thing." So I've developed this outline with video links, and I'll get out there with them. And some of what we're going to be doing it relates to the hypothermia prevention and mediation. Like, part of the class is us stopping at some point and working on our fire building skills. I need to know that you have the kit to get that done. And for those folks that like really want to solidify making sure that they're going to survive, if they're the kind of person who says, I'm going to go out on my own, we do reboarding practice in winter with the dry suits. That is an opportunity, not a requirement of the class. But it's those sorts of things layered into, all right, let's get you good at dead sticking a jig under the still foam, for sure, on a hard rocky bottom. Let's get good at identifying opportunities to use moving baits. Let's teach you some of the line maintenance, line tension maintenance tactics of fishing a suspending jerk bait. I mean, there's bait specific things that I'm teaching as well. But if you're interested in just getting an outline and like looking over it, shoot me the email, and the subject line should be winter fishing class outline. And I'll be happy to send you that, which has a bunch of the video links.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. As someone who's been fishing with Jeff, it's an education, even if you don't want it to be. He's always teaching on the river, baby.
Yeah.
So highly recommend it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the wintertime. Like I said, call me dumb or whatever, but like this pre-winter stuff, I'm just kind of over it. And I was out last weekend, or the weekend before last, and I caught all my biggest fish on a mag draft in screaming fast water. So it's not like it's not fun. I found myself going into the winter holes being like, come on, just be here. And
Yeah.
I was catching small fish, but I do think, this is my theory, I think the big fish, the biggest fish, they're the last ones in the winter hole and the first ones out of the winter hole. That's my theory on it. I don't know if you agree, but yeah.
I do
Last
know
one's in,
this.
first one's out.
There's this really cool window of opportunity at the end of winter. I actually put it in my Winter River Smallmouth DVD from forever ago. I called it Winter Pool Exodus. So they've been in the winter hole, and I don't want to give you a period of time, but just for the sake of argument, I know that on the Rappahannock, when I first identified, hey, this is happening, it was always the end of the second week of March was the best of it. Once you got to the 3rd week of March, they would bust out of there, and you would catch super active fish, not in the center mass of the winter hole. They'd be up at the top, to that foam eddy right at the top. They'd
Right
also
about where
be
they're at right now.
yeah, yeah, it's just the inverse. Or they'd
Yeah.
be in the little push water right at the tail end of it. But they would
Yep.
be like staging, like saying, "All right, we're still in here. We're tired of being here. We want to go that way or that way." And they hang out in those spots, and like you can sit on a spot and just hammer big fish all day long in those top of the winter pool foam pockets, and also in the tail if you figure out how to effectively fish downstream, to
Yeah.
the last little bit of deep water before it gets shallow and swift.
Yep. I found that period is super short, unfortunately, and, like, if you don't hit it right, I've never hit that right, I've tried,
I've hit
just
it,
never
you
hit it
know,
right.
a a bunch of times, but I know that like when it's happened, it's been like, yep, I need to mark this date on this place in on the calendar and always be here because it's so good.
Yeah, call me up,
Last
I'll come up
last
there
really
with
good
you.
one I did was Harshman, and it was on a Juniata place, and it was like he wouldn't he wouldn't put down the spinner bait. He's like, "Oh, I'm catching on the spinner." I'm like, "Nah, man, they're hitting this thing, this little black jig with the bat wings on it, and just crushing them like one spot." I'm like, "You can get in here. Like, don't you have like a Ned rig or something?" He's like, "No, I'll throw the spinner." Like, yeah, I mean, sure, you'll catch them on that, but they're eating this thing, man.
Yeah, it's hard to put down the spinnerbait if they'll eat it, but yeah, I hear you. Um, alright, well, thanks for coming on, Jeff, I
Yeah, thanks for
appreciate
having
you
me.
as always, and, till next time, free the fighter, baby.
Free the fighter.